Hello, Mr. Tom.
What's up, man? How you been?
Oh man, I am another day in paradise, as they say.
I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's still March 2020.
Yeah. It's not March, you dumbass. It's only February.
It's only I said 2020. I'm
Uh,
going back two and a half years.
Shit. See, so I didn't even catch that. Okay.
That was a
Yeah,
joke,
I
man.
gotcha.
Every day's fucking
Every
Groundhog's
day is
Day when you got to
Groundhog.
wear a mask.
Right. Yeah. Actually, you know what's funny is I went out to dinner tonight with the family for a little family celebration, and
Oh, nice.
nobody wore a mask by accident.
Uh-oh.
We just didn't even think about it, and it's the first time in 2.5 years that has happened.
That is that's crazy. I mean, we're in Maryland, and I think last week our governor cleared the state of emergency, or that might have been 2 weeks ago, and then they kind of certain counties have decided to lift the mask ban, and I'm still not sure what I feel about the whole damn thing.
You know, it's weird. I went out. I actually had meetings with clients tonight and last night, both out.
Yeah,
and I forgot my mask last night as well. And he gave me a mask. He's like, I grabbed two by accident. You want one? I was like, yeah, definitely. And I was like, I wasn't trying to not wear one, but I guess I'm also now not trying to wear one, like apparently. So like,
I get that, and it's weird because like in my clinic, I don't want to fuck around. I'm not going to risk somebody's safety. I'm not going to risk my own safety. I get sick. My clinic essentially shuts down.
You're out.
Yeah. So, but it's very funny where we're seeing this. Like, no one's really giving us a hard time in the clinic, but like, you're walking around in the county and not in the city, and it's like there's less and less masks. And I with all of the information that's out there, and some of it being very far off, and some of it being very on point, I still don't know what the hell to think about the whole thing. Like, are we going too fast? Are we not? We've done this before, and a week later, I had to put masks back on.
Yeah, and I think that it's funny now because now, and it's fun. What is even funnier is, the crew that I know that are, I don't want to say anti-vax, but like yet to be vaxxed, because not all the people I know without vax are necessarily anti, but most of them have some kind of weird, rationale for it, whatever. But like those people are sort of coming on into the fray now, out of the fray now, and saying, hey, look, all these people are stopped wearing, and things haven't gotten worse. They've gotten better in some places. And I was like, yeah, but do you know how like this works? Like, it was eventually going to get better regardless. Like,
regardless, you were you were either going to die, recover,
right,
or get vaccinated. And even with the recovery, there's some false sense of security in having the antibodies. I mean, you and I know people that have had it at least twice.
Yeah, and it's funny. I was on a ski lift with a group of people in their mid to late 20s, and it was fascinating because the lens that they're looking at this through, they both had trips planned that they postponed until they got COVID, got clean of it, and then they said, I have a 6-month window, give or take, to travel pretty much risk-free, because they were triple vaccinated and then had COVID. And they were like, but like the interesting thing about that is it's like a remarkable sense of education when I hear that, because you're like, oh, look, these are people that are actually planning intelligently around biological
how to do this.
Like, these are not like,
I'm gonna ride the wave of antibodies.
Right. I am going to do it. And it wasn't like clearly not politically motivated, not religiously motivated, not socioeconomically motivated, just simply fact motivated. Like, okay, this is literally as good as it gets, so I'm gonna basically do whatever I want for right now, and probably gonna be okay. And some people will and some people won't, but either way, it was a fascinating twist of events, because I'm not in my mid to late 20s. My friends are generally not in their mid to late 20s, and my friends do not think that way at all. And that is kind of problematic, like, because it made me, it reinforced what I already knew, is that there is a lot of different people types that are living the same reality, and they are not comparable.
Yeah, yeah. It's funny. I still use Spotify. And their Spotify Weekly last week kicked up a very funny kind of country-esque song called "Take Off Your Tinfoil Hat."
Yeah, that's funny.
And pretty much it was on the topic of COVID and the conspiracy theories we've seen, and it pretty much hammered a lot of things home for me. And I think the funny part of it is, I mean, of course it's a comical song,
Sure.
but that's kind of what you want to say to people. Hey man, look, they're not, the government's like, you've got a cell phone, bud. They don't need to put a chip in you. Drug companies, yes, they're fucking evil, but they want you to be alive to take their drugs as long as fucking possible.
Yeah, no, I mean,
and yes, they want to make money by having the government pay for your vaccines, but they also don't want their customers to die.
Yeah, right. No, absolutely. I mean, duh. Like, but I say duh, but apparently there's not everybody is in the duh category,
No, I think, I used to read these books called Power versus Force, and it was a series about this guy that basically he had this crazy kinesiology test and this logarithmic scale of consciousness. Where like 0 is like you're not conscious at all, and 1,000 is you're fully enlightened, and most of us would fall somewhere in the mid hundreds, like 300, 400, and then once you start crossing into the 500s, you get into this spiritual realm. But I stopped reading it after
the spiritual realm.
Yeah, I mean, full things, and like it's muscle testing. So like, you'd have a room full of people and ask them this real esoteric question, and they'd all like, and then he was like calibrating the consciousness of dolphins and shit. And it was a great read, and it was like this. Honestly, he's got like 7 or 8 volumes. He's still pumping them out. When he said Bill O'Reilly's No Spin Zone was the most factual show on TV, I was like, I'm going to put these books down.
I'm gonna have to step away.
I'm like, Bill O'Reilly, the guy that paid off the woman who was sexually he's a good dude.
Yeah.
Fuck his politics. Like he's sexually harassed somebody.
He's a horrible human being. Don't be crazy.
We got video clips, but it's very funny where like even we can put together an argument that sounds extremely intelligent.
I mean,
and convince people of things that are completely untrue.
So it's funny because I just am not the target market, but like I do not fall for any of those. Like that's the thing. Like the ones that like are the most successful, I'm like, were the ones that I was like, that's complete horseshit from like day one. Like you're like, that sounds so bananas that I can't even imagine. And then the next day, fucking Twitter or something's like, oh look, the hottest new trend in fucking COVID prevention is holding your breath and spinning around in a circle. You're like, what?
I saw something today and they call it the Einstein effect, and it was this psychological study where they're like, if I say scientists say and then give you a fact, you're more likely to believe it. You're not asking what fucking scientist. I might be talking about a geologist talking about like
a veterinarian talking about nuclear physics. Oh my God. Yeah. But so actually it's funny. I didn't intend for that, but like that's kind of like what you and I were noodling on about this, right? Like, so look, let's just be a little self-aware for 1 second. You and I are hardly the people to go to first for a completely rational dissertation of anything, because because while we might be well informed about topics, like we are just not like what you would consider like the normal human being when it comes to this kind of stuff. Agreed or no?
I would agree with that. I think that's a fair assessment.
Now that's not a bad thing. It doesn't say that we're crazy or weird, but we are more willing to look deeper into more things than the average human being. And we're probably more likely to more broadly interpret and draw parallels to other things than, say, your average bear as well.
I think so.
Okay, so let's just assume, for argument's sake, that is the foundation for this conversation. Okay, is that fair? Right.
I think we do have to frame it. Okay. Yes.
Now, what is also true about us, okay, because this is the other frame, and I think it's important to put a fence around this conversation.
We do need to we do need a good border here.
Okay. So on the other side of it, we're both hyper pragmatists when it comes to most things in our lives, and it's not just health stuff. Like we are, we're very efficiency driven, very like inquisitive, very much call bullshit at the first sign of bullshit. Like, I mean, we're pretty aggressive in that regard. Also, a little atypical in that regard as well. So I would say we, in my opinion, and you tell me if I'm crazy, we sit on the outer banks of both of those points.
I would say that. I would also say we're open-minded enough to go, all right, I'll entertain this for a little while.
Right. And that was the third point I was going to make. I said, our open mind, that's like the middle point, right? Like, so if you got those two things on one side and the other, and then open-mindedness in the middle, we are also a little bit more open-minded for a brief period anyway.
Well, like, I'll entertain that thought. Please explain how you got there.
But I do it. Do you do it in acts? Like Act 1 is that you're like, cool, let me know. And then Act 2 is like, you're losing me and I'm about to start judging you in a pretty meaningful way.
I don't consider myself all that political, right. But I'm like, oh, that sounds great for you. Right. I'm not gonna push back, but okay, you let me know how that goes for you, man.
So the reason I wanted to frame this is because what we're like, we want to talk about sort of the flurry of true and untrue and maybe in the middle and maybe not yet proven conversations around COVID, because why not? It's still COVID. It's still something you got to talk about. When you have a fucking show called Irreverent Health, it's almost like COVID was designed to be talked about on the show. It was like, I mean, it's crazy. So the reason I framed those up, and I wanted to kind of get your take on this, is that if you look at the stuff that we're talking about tonight through the lens of saying, we're pretty researched about it, right? Not saying we're not experts. We're not, nobody's an expert in this because we're all learning it at the same speed. Some people know more than others, but nobody's an expert. Let's be honest. Right. We got a pretty open mind and we're pretty willing to call bullshit. I mean, I do feel like it's a nice way to look at this topic in particular.
I would agree with that. I would agree with that. When you presented it to me, I'm a little upset that I knew nothing of these products that we were talking about. Clearly, I knew they existed, but no claims to COVID.
Right.
And perhaps that's me going, I'm not listening to any news anymore.
Right. Well, I mean, I'm the same way, but like I am, but I'm not, right? Like I am very much, I really have turned off, the majority of news outlets in my life.
Yeah.
The thing that I've kept on though is I'm a real big fan of both the BBC and Associated Press.
Yeah, I think those are the two least biased that we have access to.
But then I take it a step further and I remove U.S. politics, religion, like what I get in my feed from those two sources only are science and technology, arts and music, and there's one other one. I haven't changed the settings in forever. I can't remember what they call it, and I don't even know if those two are the right ones. But
is it like lifestyle or something like that?
It's like strange facts. That's one. That's actually.
That's a fun one. That's a fun one.
You know what? I would rather learn about the fucking world record for the most giant rubber band ball just got beat. Like I want to know that shit way more than I want to know like who fucking Trump pissed off today. You know what I mean? Like, I don't, it's like zero.
I get it. Yeah.
It's the least interesting thing about us as a species. And like, I don't need to know more about it.
I know. I totally get that.
And so like, I really don't watch it, but one of the things that comes up is health and wellness. Like I do have that as a thing. And in recognition to how biased we all are or can be without really checking ourselves, like there is
Yeah.
not a news source out there that I've seen that is really truly objective about reporting on specifically treatments and or cures for COVID. It seems to be like the one territory people just get really entrenched in a ideology or in a political philosophy or something, and they get so blindsided by that it really blocks them off from any critical thinking capacity about this topic, it seems. And that's just, maybe it's an overly cynical view, but I mean,
I don't think it is. I think that's human nature, right? We're more driven by emotions than we are on anything else, and we like to think we aren't,
right.
but we are.
No, for sure. I mean, we're an emotional species. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
I mean, it's one of our
And
defining
we're not that
factors,
intelligent about it. Yeah.
Well, we're certainly getting dumber about it now, aren't we? I mean, that's
absolutely.
Yeah. But like I see, and we've had this conversation on here, and God only knows everyone on the planet has had a nauseating amount of conversations with people they know about COVID about at this point, right? It's just, it's an exhausting topic, right? But like, I am still surprised that there is a faction of humanity, and I got to say, for the restore faith in humanity right now, most people I know have gotten out of this pool that they were waiting in. Like, but there is this group left that just cannot give up the battle. I don't know what else to call it, you know, and like, just to get the ball kind of rolling, right? Like, one thing that I got roped into was this saline spray, this xylitol spray called X-Clear, right? Or sure, I don't know if there's some kitschy pronunciation for it, but it's X-Clear is what it is. Now, I've used this for a long time. And it was always sort of like touted as something that you use before you get on an airplane, right? Like, I never really understood why. And then COVID came out, and a buddy of mine who is one of those people that's not anti-vax, but is definitely not vaxxed. And as a result, he is constantly investigating ways to sort of buck the system, stack the deck in his favor kind of thing. He's like, well, I'm not getting vaccinated yet. And he still uses that word yet. But fuck, what, 2.5 years into this fucking thing? And like, he's not, like, if you haven't done it now, like, can we still use yet as a modifier? Like,
I don't know. I mean, is he waiting for the dangerous strain?
I don't know. Like, I don't know. So he's on this endless barrage of experiments. Now, I count myself really lucky to know this guy, because A, he's a really nice guy. I've known him forever. But B, like, the passion and delirium that this guy possesses around this topic is breathtaking. It's amazing. Like, I love it. Like, I mean, and it's such a cool microscope into a completely different way of thinking that I find it like amazing. But anyway, he got me into this rabbit hole, and I started going down it. And if I remember correctly, the whole gist is that something around the grapefruit seed oil, the xylitol, and the saline prevents basically like Teflon for your nasal passages, and prevents viral adhesion, specifically of, or inclusive of, the SARS-CoV-2 virus, right? And that sounded interesting, right? Like, I mean, come on. If somebody tells you that in an elevator, you're like, bookmarking that in Chrome now. I'm
gonna go check that out later.
Yeah, I'm gonna go check that out. So I did exactly that. I mean, I spent a couple weeks like kind of looking at it, and honestly, there was a fairly, compelling enough amount of data at the time to be like, all right, I'll bite. Like, what's up now?
Well, and I think, to your point there, from what you were saying before about us framing this in, right? We know the spray's been on the market for a while. We know nasal sprays have been around forever. We know you're not going to hurt yourself with it, if nothing else, right?
Right. But that was kind of like the thing, right? Like I said, okay, so a 4-pack of these on Amazon was like $15, like, or something ridiculous. Yeah, like, so the. You and I used to talk about things in like a rating scale to try to make it like democratized, so everything.
Yeah.
And like, if we were still talking about that, like when one of our categories used to be like, the risk, the potential risk, like how bad is this? And another category was financial impact. Well, I mean, look, there's nothing less financially impactful or safe than a nose spray. I mean, it's like absolutely like if you're wrong, which, I full disclosure, I've been taking this as a general daily prophylactic for at
Yeah.
least 6 months. And hey, if it turns out I was wrong, okay. So I wasted like $20 on Amazon and fucking took a bunch of nose spray, which
Yeah. The day after you find that out, you don't use it.
well, that's the funny thing though. Like I don't
Yeah.
use it all the time now,
Yeah.
but like, you know what? It's actually pretty moisturizing for your nasals. So like we're in the Northeast in wintertime. It's fucking
Yeah.
dry out there, bro.
It's dry as
Yeah.
hell.
Like, so I'm going to like, fuck it. Okay. So it doesn't, help prevent viral adhesion of the SARS-CoV-2 virus, but I mean, my nose feels nice and moist. Fucking, I'm cool with that. Like, so, but like, it's absolutely like could not be less impactful if you're wrong. So,
Yeah.
and I was like, all right, I got $20 to throw at this problem. I'll check it out. Now, here's the thing: didn't get COVID in that amount of time, and took 2 trips to Las Vegas for trade shows in that same amount of time. So I don't know, what was there something to it? Fuck if I know.
Well, I mean, and then you were also vaccinated as well, right?
Well, I'm triple vaccinated, and
Yeah,
I also, I take, NAD plus. Yeah, I take vitamin
all
D.
the things that should keep your body up and healthy and immune system optimized. Yeah.
Like, so like, I mean, is it the X Clear? Probably, maybe not, but guess it's definitely the X Clear is a part of that regimen. So barring any kind of N of 1 exhaustive, matrix testing on myself,
Yeah.
which would take years. I'm just going to say that it's just part of a cocktail that I use. And if it works, great. And if it doesn't work, my nose is moist in the wintertime. So what the fuck is the difference?
And you're flushing your sinuses out anyway.
Right.
You're getting something up there that's going to help.
Right. So
now you got me looking for it.
It's,
and I just see that they've got like a neti pot mix too.
Oh, do they? That's awesome.
Yeah.
So here's the thing, right? So my buddy tells me about this X Clear stuff, and I go spend $20 on Amazon or whatever it was, and I buy a 4-pack. Now keep in mind, not only did I take it, but I gave it to my kids to take every day before school. And I said, look,
Yeah.
I even said to him the first time, I said, I don't know if this is going to do anything, but it's not going to hurt you. And you guys have to go to school every day. I don't. So just take this, and if it helps at all, then we're all ahead of the curve, right? Like, but in my mind as a parent, giving my kids a compound, I'm like, it's nose spray. Like, it's a saline spray with grapefruit seed extract, which is completely benign, in every way. And so I'm like, all right, well, worst case scenario, they got a nose spray pumped up their nose. Like, I mean, there's literally,
that's pretty much it. Yeah.
Right, there's nothing. It's salt water. You know what I mean? Like, that's it. And so when I look at this and I kind of weighed it, that's what I did. And then I took it, and now increasingly, and they're being sued now as a result, just to let you know, by the FTC for making claims that the FTC says is completely bullshit. And so, and by the way, they're also being, brought up by the DOJ, and like, I mean, the U.S. government in its various forms is aggressively going after these people.
Well, it's such a weird situation, I guess, where you don't want people, especially if you've got this, like, we have to push this vaccine campaign,
right,
and this is how we get public safety, to then have people go, no, I'm just gonna spray this up my nose.
Grapefruit seed.
And I'll be fine. Don't worry about me. It makes it a very hard argument. So yes, is the big bad government coming after this little company that might be helping, and they're cost effective, and the drug companies are not getting their cut now, and is that possible?
Right.
Well, yeah, I've heard those arguments. It sounds like it, but more than likely what I think is happening is, like, if you make a claim, you have to prove it. And there's a certain scientific method that needs to be followed. And because this wasn't this was an over-the-counter spray. It wasn't an FDA studied and drug. I think that's where the conflict arose.
Well, so here's where, I mean, I have a company that deals with advertising all day, right? And so I think I'm pretty jaded at times on the role of a marketer in the world, because marketers are essentially really well paid, very articulate storytellers, right? Like
Yeah.
they weave a very good story, right? Like, so there's no difference between excuse me, a marketer and a writer, right? Like they're essentially the same thing, or a playwright, right? Like, I mean, these are people like just expressing a story. And
Yeah.
so if I take that, which, look, I've been in marketing for 25 years, like I'm it's sort of like built in at this point. So
Yeah.
when XClear CEO came out and gave a response, it instantly struck me as like very good marketing, because he basically said, we have a couple RCTs, like, to prove that it works, like and another another peer reviewed thing, article as well, RCT, a random control trial, right? So
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, so here's the thing, the little bio geek in me is like, all right, well, there's two RCTs and a peer reviewed article. I mean, like, that's not
It's not to you don't turn your nose up
right.
at
It's not
that.
knocking the doors down with a voluminous, like,
Well, you also have to see, and this might be where like diving deeper into those studies, how big was the study group?
Yeah,
Like,
exactly.
if we said, oh, it worked for 20 people, well, that's not really.
Well, so that's the
Yeah.
point, right? Like, so here's where the marketing side of the jaded marketing guy in me comes out. It's like it's all the same shit you just said, clearly. I mean,
Yeah.
but from the marketing angle, how I translate that in that world is, okay, all I need to do is get into one no-name journal with a bunch
Yeah.
of fucking subpar douchebags that are like working for said journal, and I give them $100,000, and now I'm recognized, or they have a trial on me,
Yeah.
or whatever. This is a pathway that, like, a troglodyte like myself could figure out how to do. So, like, a savvy, like, drug pharmaceutical rep or something like that couldn't fucking absolutely figure out a way to do that, or a big,
Yeah.
company. And so, like, I mean, shit, if money wasn't an object, I could produce those exact same results.
Listen, Matt, and I probably told you this before, right? If you get into a journal, like, and this has happened, I remember somebody talking about it, like you would hear about it on the morning, like Matt Lauer or some asshole would say something like, hey, this new study, and it's like, it's in a journal that sounds scientific, but that's a pay for play journal.
Sure. Right.
And we don't even know if they did the goddamn study.
Well, that's the
we
thing.
could bang
Is it a
out something.
meta-analysis like that?
But you're not going to have that until you have thousands of studies on it, or at least 40 studies,
so that's
or something.
just it, though. You know that,
Yeah.
and I know that. But you know what? There's meta studies out there that are literally the study of like 3 different studies. I'm like, that's not a fucking meta study. It's a book report.
Well, they're cherry picking there.
That's a book report. That's not like that's not a meta study. Come on now. Like, I mean, don't be crazy.
Yeah.
And like but that's my point. Like, if I'm the CEO of a company who made a claim in a world where everyone's freaking out about COVID, okay, let's play good cop, bad cop here, or good cop or bad cop, good reporter here, right? So bad cop goes in there and says, okay, I'm a CEO of a company that makes nose spray. People fucking manufacture me a story that lets me sell this for COVID, because every motherfucker on earth is concerned about COVID right now. And if you come out and your marketing guys are like, listen, we need a couple random controls and we need a couple peer reviewed, and we are going to go out there and we're going to tell people that we can fucking prevent viral adhesion. And that could be true in vitro for 4 seconds. But like, none of these things are in vivo studies, and like, so like,
no.
I say, what the fuck? How do you even?
Well, even like, so, Matt, you're like hammering at it, and I think I found these quotes that might be the nail in the coffin for them, right? Okay. So one, they say destroys the virus.
Okay.
And like, the vaccine doesn't do that.
Right.
There's only a handful of antivirals that actually destroy the virus. That's normally your immune system doing that. And then they said, we've known this since February 2020. It didn't really make waves in the US. We started shutting shit down in March of 2020.
So I think that
You
quote
know,
you're
so
referring to, if I
yeah,
remember it correctly, was
yeah.
the quote about they've known its antiviral properties since February of 2020.
Mm,
Not specifically to the SARS-CoV-2, but to its antibacterial. So here's the thing. Xclear also claims that it's an antibacterial, an antimicrobial, and antiviral, right? So like they're actually claim, which is usually like those things kind of, you see those go together a lot, but
yeah,
so like you're not going to question it like on the face of it. Like not every antimicrobial is also antiviral, I don't think, or
yeah.
you know.
No,
So like, but you do often hear those things grouped together. So like if somebody says, "Oh, this is those," antimicrobial, antibacterial, and antifungal, I'm like, all right, cool. So it's that version of it. I've heard that before. I know products like that.
yeah,
Like I didn't even, and I'm guilty of it. I mean, like, look, I fucking know better, and like I didn't get tripped up on that. You know what I mean? Like, so I guess what I'm saying is like I can fucking pay for that. Like I could. So on the one hand, I want to believe that XClear is not an epic group of douchebags because I use the product, but B, it was a story I would have wanted to believe that this nose spray could help
yeah.
fucking cure it. You know?
Yeah. I just it's such a huge claim to then like man. I've been looking the whole time we've been talking for a method of action for any of the compounds
Oh no,
that
and
are
that's
in
it.
there.
And actually,
You
so
know?
so to skip forward real quick because we talked about that. The other thing we wanted to
Yeah,
bring up tonight was like this wave where people are using the same argument, except for instead of nasal cavity, mouth and trachea, and that is mouthwash. And
yeah,
and the funny thing about that is like you're like, okay, well, what is it? Um, and so they narrow it down, then they get real fancy, right? Like acetylpyridinium or CPC was the compound in the mouthwash, and it's
yeah,
in scope. I think it's in Listerine. It's this. I don't know what it does inside mouthwashes in general, but anyway, supposedly this had like that X clear effect, but in your mouth, right? And so these dudes that I
yeah,
know who are like that guy I told you about, he every morning and every night it's scope and X clear like every day, and it's like part of like 15 things this dude does instead of just going and getting a fucking vaccine. Like he's doing these things every day, and I'm like kind of like, all right, well, now the practical warrior in me goes, dude, that sounds wildly inefficient. You're gonna do this fucking every day, all day. Like what the fuck, man? Like just go get a vaccine and move on. Like that sounds exhausting what you're doing.
yeah. And here's the thing: Nature, the peer-reviewed journal does say that there is some antiviral and possible effect of mouthwash, but we're betting on a lot, right? We're betting that it doesn't take a nasal route in rather than
Right.
than an oral route in.
Well, no, if you're doing both, then it doesn't matter, right?
Well, if you're doing both, but how long is this? How long is this effective for? Too,
So
like,
Xclear's claim
do
was
I have to do it every 3 hours?
No, Xclear's claim was they gave 4 hours of protection from COVID.
Yeah,
So here's where it gets funny because like, I guess putting on my conspiracy hat here, if I was going to spin a conspiracy theory, I think I'd probably try to stay away from hyperspecifics like 4 hours, right? Like I don't know that sound, but on the flip side,
and that might give it more credence.
Exactly, right.
Look, we know this.
That's exactly
this
what I was
is
say.
the effective,
right?
Time that you have this. It looks like for the mouthwash, the study in Nature, they were rinsing and gargling 5 times a day.
Correct. And again, though, the basis for the claim for the acetylpyridinium is an in vitro test where they do COVID smears in a petri dish and throw a little fucking Listerine in there and it dies.
Yeah.
Now, listen, I use Listerine every morning in my life for 20 years. Has nothing to do with COVID for sure. And
yeah,
let me just tell you, that shit attacks your mouth pretty aggressively. I think if you put Listerine on anything, it's going to kill it immediately.
So honestly, Matt, here's some funny little trivia. Listerine was originally the lys from Listerine means to lyse, to break apart a cell, right? It was originally a cleaner. Like it meant for like labs and
so funny.
like your kitchen counters, and then
and now I've been gargling
people
with it for 20 years,
and people have been gargling with it due to some marketing. But yeah, it does kill quite a bit in your mouth, and I could see it having some antiviral, and clearly here's a pretty damn good study that says yes, that's true.
So here's the thing, it's true, but it's also probably not true.
Well, I mean, think about how many people probably have been using Listerine this whole time and have gotten COVID.
Oh, I don't even.
Yeah,
so I don't know for
a
fact that I've had COVID. I've never exhibited symptoms, but my daughter had COVID, and none of us. And we had a pile of the at-home tests, and so we all tested. Then we all tested again. Then we all tested again, and the only one in my house that ever got it was my daughter. So like either we had it and gave it to her and didn't know we had it, or we have bionic immune systems and it didn't matter, because I'll tell you what, the night before she was, we found out. I, in her room, putting her to bed, kiss goodnight, like the whole thing. Like there's zero chance I wouldn't have had COVID if I was in her company.
Matt, so now this, I'm looking at the abstract of that Nature study. It was 41 patients that were diagnosed in a hospital with COVID. Right. So we're also, once again, not talking about, a study with, 100, 1,000, 10,000 people. It's good initial, like a pilot study, but God, man, I really I want to believe this.
Right.
I'll be honest. I want to believe that there's a cheap, safe way that people can keep safe. Hey, fucking use mouthwash, just for oral hygiene. And if you get an added benefit, use nasal sprays to clean your sinuses. But I don't know, man. I want to believe it. It sounds scientific.
So
ish.
It does. But so here's the thing. I think all of these things are look, I gotta believe that the whole world isn't a bunch of douchebags, right? Like I need to. And at their core, I don't believe that XClear or Scope or whoever, is necessarily trying to be douchebags. But I do think that they are spinning gold. They're Rumpelstiltskinning the facts.
You're absolutely, they're a marketing company that happens to sell a nasal spray.
Right. And when I look at this, I say, okay, let's just say I didn't fabricate the study. Let's say we didn't take the hyper jaded approach. Okay.
Yeah.
Great. So they didn't manufacture the studies, but it probably also doesn't take a lot of time to find a study that was underfunded, under-designed, under-observed, under-reported, and say, I can work with those numbers.
Well, yeah, and that's the thing. So we got, you said one of them was in a peer-reviewed journal, which is good, but is that a pay-for-play peer-reviewed journal? Is that one that actually the community thinks is quality? And then two, the other studies, were they not peer-reviewed? Who designed them? Why did they design them? You already have a built-in bias. If the company did it, they have financial interest.
Right.
So, but at that being said, it's like, well, in the company's defense, well, I'm going to want to make sure the shit I'm selling is doing what I say it does.
So that's what I always want out of stuff coming from me, right? Like I want to make sure it's helping people more than it's not. And if it's not helping somebody, it's because I made a mistake, not because I intentionally defrauded someone.
There wasn't an attempt,
right?
At,
you know what I mean? Like
trickery there.
That's kind of what I would count as sort of a minimum mandatory for delivery on my part.
Yeah.
And so I do kind of, maybe it's naivete, but I would like to believe that most people also feel that way. I do think that the what's that family who made oxycodone that like fucking completely raped the
Oh, I
planet for a
couldn't
while?
even watch that
Yeah,
I couldn't
but
even watch that documentary,
yeah.
man.
Oh, I know. I watched like 30 seconds of it. And I was like, oh,
It's the no, the Waltons or
Walmart.
Walmart, but it's a W.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. I
But
know who
you
you're
know what I'm
talking
saying,
about.
right? Like, and that family was like the fucking trash of
I mean they were like there's like drug
they're
dealers
drug
like
dealers.
street drug
Not only they're
dealers
drug
that
dealers, but they
are
were
more
fucking
compassionate.
Yeah, there are drug
They're-
dealers, more compassionate drug dealers on the street corner in Baltimore at 4 a.m. than than those family than that family was.
Yeah,
It's crazy.
absolutely.
But so yeah, how did we jump off onto that topic? Where the fuck did that happen? You know, like
I don't know. Do we need to do an opioid?
do we need to do an opioid one now?
episode?
Yeah. No, but like, so I know. Yeah, I'm kidding. I know where it was, but when the CEO of XClear comes out and talks, I gotta hope and I gotta think that he's absolutely not even in the ballpark of that human, right? Like, he's not
Yeah.
that guy. Now, what he might be
Yeah.
doing though is saying, "Hey, marketing found this study with 41 shitheads in the hospital.
Yeah.
We didn't ask too many questions. We didn't qualify. We don't know how many were men or women or black, white. We have absolutely no defining anything. We just have 41
Yeah.
random people, and we got some random data, and it kind of looks like it favors your hypothesis. So here you go.
But that's how all, like, not all, but most research starts. We noticed a weird thing.
Right.
Okay, can we get more people that experience said weird thing?
So wouldn't you consider this in study parlance a pilot study, not a
pilot study? Right. Yeah, and that can be RCT. That this one was triple blind.
Right.
It looks like it was designed well. They did separate people. They factored in
you're talking about the 41
they did all that.
One?
Yeah,
wow.
the mouthwash one. Yeah, so I mean that's
incredible.
and I mean
I didn't think any of those things would be the case.
Nature picked it up, and like you don't even have to be a scientist to know that, like, hey, Nature's a peer-reviewed journal.
Well, not only is it a peer-reviewed journal, but like, well, actually, because it's a peer-reviewed journal, the shit they put in there can't be like complete shithead science. Like, it's got to be.
Yeah, but I also think the study itself, I mean, reads like, hey, look, there's something here.
So listen, I think that there's probably something with the XClear, but like the question that I'm curious about tonight on this particular conversation is, how do you navigate that landscape, right? Because look, if I was the person who didn't feel like getting vaccinated, right, I'm gonna probably still you still have a survival instinct at being a human being, right? So like, even if you choose not to get the vaccine, you still choose to not die. So you kind of, your brain at a reptilian level, if nothing else, goes, okay, so the challenge has been accepted. We're gonna do this without a vaccine. So we got to do kind of a lot more to make sure that we hedge our bets. And then like that's when I think you see, at least I see, people going down these wacky rabbit holes, right? But you know what I mean? Like, because they're like, well, if I can't take the vaccine, maybe mouthwash is the cure to my problems, or maybe this nose spray is it, or maybe it's ivermectin, or maybe it's, it's like you just start going down these wacky tangents.
So and God, man, I'm looking at this mouthwash study and I'm looking at their sources. They've known about an antiviral function with this for quite some time, and it looks like this study in Nature is pointing to and referencing other studies that were done as recent as 2020.
Yeah,
that actually has me scratching my head a little bit, like, I'm going to look into some of these.
Well, it's a fascinating thing, and like I said, I've been coincidentally taking Listerine every day for over 20 years at this point, for sure. So it didn't, like, when I read the article, I was like, well, I don't know, no delta there. I'm gonna keep doing.
Just keep doing what you were doing. Yeah.
Now, so in those Vegas trips, I also bring Listerine on the road because I do that. My dental habits are the same on the road, for the most part, and So, is it because I have a pocket red light Vilite that I put in my nose, or X-Clear or Listerine or vitamin D or fucking the NAD plus? I mean, who the fuck knows? But
Well,
I didn't get
I mean,
COVID that I
it's
know of.
probably a synergistic thing,
Right.
right?
But
And
here's the thing.
I
I
think
didn't
that's
get
it.
COVID,
Yeah.
yet I would never tell anybody ever that you should do any of those things for any other reason than
I
you
mean,
want to do
it
them.
would be irresponsible.
Well, yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like,
It,
okay, so I do those things, but I'm certainly not. You know what I attribute to me not having COVID? The fact that I got a vaccine and the fact that I'm healthy. Period.
yeah, and I think at the end of the day, those might be the two biggest factors, regardless. So maybe these other things are a little like, hey, we're just we're just shaping up the defense system here.
Sure.
We're just adding another layer in, and it may be like, look, if they made it through the barbed wire and past the machine guns,
Right.
Maybe maybe they'll slip on this roller skate and fall down the stairs.
Little Home Alone action.
But yeah, it totally gets Home Alone.
Yeah, you get Home Alone.
But at the maybe you just get the one that like kind of stumbled in, and that one virus is already kind of beaten up.
Yeah, right. That's really funny. That's hilarious.
I don't know, but it's
if we ever
like,
draw an infographic for this episode, can we have like a COVID-2 like spike ball with like a black eye?
Yeah. I was just have it swinging down like a paint can downstairs.
Yeah, right. That'd be hilarious.
Oh God.
But so you're right. But I guess I guess I'm how do I describe this? I am both disappointed in that study result.
Yeah.
With X-Clear. I'm both encouraged. I'm also encouraged by the report that you're telling me about from Nature, which I didn't know about.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I'm also that both of those things really reinforce my core curiosity here, which is how everyone is going to be very willing to support any data that comes out that intrinsically bolsters their confirmation bias, whether it's yours, mine, the next guy.
Absolutely.
Whatever, right? Like that's a baseline of humanity you can't get around. Yeah. I really try very hard to look above that horizon best I can. And I'm not perfect and I don't do that all the time, but I do try to look a little bit over that to see that there are some other ways that this can be, interpreted. And like in this case, nothing describes that is not more true anywhere other than in COVID. Like COVID has been so interpreted, that like confirmation bias is the lens by which we all view COVID.
And I think it would be foolish for anybody, especially the medical community, to hang their hat on anything as fact, right? Especially as more data comes out.
It's crazy. Like
but I mean, like, Matt, look, we pulled up this study and I'm like, oh shit, there's more studies. And it's like, this term, I'm going to do my own research. I mean, that's, God damn it, man. That's, don't do that. Yeah. don't do that.
Yeah, because like, look, what if I did a study about fucking anything, right? Like, am I a real good, I mean, I do not represent a meaningful percentage of the U.S. population with my lifestyle and everything.
Yeah.
Like, I'm absolutely not normal. And
absolutely not.
And so here's the thing. I'm not saying that to be an asshole. I'm saying that to say, like, how could you possibly use me in a study about what is effective or not with COVID, because nothing about my lifestyle is ordinary.
Well, and honestly, if it was a good study and they designed it with certain metrics, you probably wouldn't be included in the data.
That's exactly right. I would be excluded
right?
by
like a good study. They'd be like, no, you're too healthy, you're too this, you're too that.
Well, in studies you have, I don't know if everybody knows this, but you have eliminating factors in studies, right? And
absolutely.
And like, I would be in my lifestyle is literally an eliminating factor for anything regarding any kind of health study.
Well, especially so, like, you're triple vaccinated. We know you're doing all these other things. Like, well, some of those are going to be like confounding factors, and they're going to have to be factored for. And that means you're not part of this study. Right. Why? Because you're not normal.
Right, because you're not normal. Yeah, and like that's it is what it is, right? Like there's nothing you can't change that fact, right? I mean, and so
Yeah, I mean, so if the takeaway from this whole episode is that you're not
Yeah.
normal, and
But you know what? It's funny. I'm not normal, and that's exactly why when I hear somebody
yeah,
say, like my buddy, "Hey, you just got," and he says it kind of jokingly, but like I'd say 25% jokingly, 75% seriously. Hey, all you got to do is mouthwash and X Clear, and I'm kind of like, and then another buddy of mine who we've talked about on the show before, who is absolutely anti-vax, like 100%.
yeah.
He is like, fucking with this antihistamines. Like there's a whole antihistamine rabbit hole you can go down with this, and by the way, I know somebody I recently broke bread with somebody who's a like a longevity biohacker guy, and he is all up in the antihistamine repertoire of anti-aging, and how it basically these antihistamines have power to sort of modulate ATP dysfunction. It's really fascinating. It's an energy pathway remediation situation that creates the longevity in that particular rabbit hole. Fascinating. And I'm at the very top of that rabbit hole. I'm about to jump into that rabbit hole, but like I haven't quite done that yet. So yeah, I don't want to talk too much about that because I'm actually just been introduced to this rabbit hole, and I'm going to start playing around with that a little bit. But here's the thing: it's a rabbit hole, just like all these things, right? Like they're all fucking rabbit holes. But here's the thing: I'm enough self-aware that I know what a rabbit hole looks like, and I'm not going to be like, "Hey Tom, I'm on this fucking thing, and it's like you got to start doing it tomorrow." I'm going to say, "Hey, I'm trying this thing. It might be stupid, but
hey man, so like you said, like, hey, type something into Chrome in the elevator when you're having a conversation. I just did that.
Yeah.
One of the first things I saw was long-term use of antihistamines linked to dementia.
Yeah.
Johns Hopkins study, and I'm like,
Well, did you see this other study that just came out about oh my god, diabetes drug,
metformin?
Yeah. High medium dose metformin in later life patients actually increases mitochondrial dysfunction and shortens lifespan.
Oh shit. Well, I'm glad it gave me heartburn because I stopped taking it.
Well, I mean, truth be told, I just got introduced to that topic recently too, and I haven't had a lot of time to go down the rabbit hole, but it's I believe it's a 2021 study that came out. So, it's real new. Or I mean, sorry, 2022. Sorry, 2022 study.
All right, I'm gonna take a look at that one too. I was only on it for a month, so
I actually have that study. I will forward it to you.
Cool.
But yeah, so the thing I'm curious about that, it's a fasting mimetic, and it's supposed to cause a little bit of an energy disruption. I mean, I think that's kind of like what makes it do its thing. And so I'm actually curious a couple key factors in that result. One is, what does later life patients mean? Does that mean 40-year-olds or does it mean 80-year-olds? And what is the comparison? So like if an 80-year-old gets mitochondrial dysfunction from high dose metformin, what happens in a 20-year-old? Like, is there a converse effect in that, like that? And that's the thing I didn't see.
And also, I mean, how, like, yeah, I'd want to see how they're teasing out those symptoms of natural aging. Like, well, no, you start taking metformin when you're 80,
objectively shorter lifespan, and when they look at cellular integrity, like much worse than you would be without it.
Interesting.
I know that's not what we're talking about today, but there's this whole little rabbit hole I've been diving down about energy pathways in the body being like really the main causes of everything from cancer to, anything you've ever heard of.
That was the whole takeaway from lifespan, right?
No, I know, but this rabbit hole that I've got, it started with life. Well, it kind of got me to Lifespan, and then Lifespan kind of boosted it up. But look, Lifespan, that whole fucking book is essentially about metformin. Like, you want to talk about shit that's like
that's the biggest thing they talk about.
Like,
they definitely do.
So here's the funny thing, right? Now, what happens that Sinclair's not writing a book every minute, and as he says,
well, Sinclair is also saying that he's not a medical doctor and he's not giving medical advice. That's another thing.
Well, he also says, I mean, look, he also is a little listen, I happen to love that book, and I do think net that guy is not nefarious, but here's the thing, he's a fucking marketer, brother. He's like, I am not a medical doctor, and I'm not going to tell you. I will tell you what I take every day, though. Wink, wink. Like, it's sort of like, okay, well, you're not telling me to do something, but you're not telling me to do something either.
Well, I mean, but what would your first question be for somebody that does research? What do you do?
Right.
Okay, you've looked at all the science. What do you do?
Right.
So I almost feel like that's a natural question, and that's kind of like that would get teed up. Even if he said, "I'm not going to tell you," people would hound him.
Well, that's exactly right. Like, look, people ask me the same thing, and I'm certainly not comparing myself to Sinclair, but like, look, when somebody in a group is like obsessed about something like I am with this, most people I know, when they come up with these random questions, will come to me, and they know me well enough now. They just skip all the pretense. They're like, hey, what would you do with this problem? Like, because they're like, and the implication there is, I know you're not my doctor. I'm not going to take you as my doctor, but I am curious. Like, what would you do in this situation? Like, would you take a gram of metformin every day? Well, 6 weeks ago I would have said for sure, but now I'm like, well, I don't know. I'm the jury's still.
I want to see that study. I want to see that study, man.
It is definitely it is definitely I don't know. It's definitely an interesting thing, but this goes to my point, right? You have a lot of body of evidence that literally is proving 100 times over that metformin has like these dramatic anti-aging, outcomes. And then all of a sudden you have one study that says it's not. Now, does this mean that all those other studies are bullshit? No, it just means that we have created at least one.
Maybe we haven't seen yet.
Right. We've created at least one reality where that's not the case.
Yeah.
And so, okay. But people, when it comes to these COVID cures, like when I told my friend, like taking ivermectin was fucking retarded and like you should not do that, he was like, you're just a bleeding heart liberal and you just don't believe it. And I was like, no, no, that's not true even on the face of it. But like it's
objectively, I can show you why not.
Right. I could literally lead you to the river of reasons why that is an objectively stupid idea. Now, here's the thing. And here's where, you and I have had this conversation about Rogan before. And like, I completely think, the way he does business is kind of shitty, but of late, that was not always my opinion. But like, when it comes to this kind of stuff, I'm like, you can't just go tell people to take ivermectin because it worked for him. Okay. Like it did. Okay. But he has Joe Rogan biology. He doesn't have Matt biology. He doesn't have Tom biology.
He also has Joe Rogan money too. So he has access to all the other treatments. It wasn't just he had the monoclonal stuff. He had all the things he could have done. He had IVs.
Right.
He had it wasn't just ivermectin. And he, chances are, once again, he's not the typical 50-year-old male. He's in much better shape.
But that's my point. Like, even the fucking almighty Joe Rogan can't tell anybody what to fucking do because he is not like everybody else. And he's a lot not like most people that fucking listen to Joe Rogan. You know what I mean? Like, so. Yeah. So, like, that's what I'm saying. Like, I mean, look, my buddy with the mouthwash and the scope and the nose spray that we were talking about, I already use one of those products every single day. And the other one I used on and off. So now I just moved it to every day. Like, but it's like very little delta in my life with absolutely no possibility of problems if it was wrong data.
Yeah.
So it's like a real easy thing. Ivermectin is not good for you, like, and could objectively hurt you.
Look, objectively, if you have worms and you are getting it under medical supervision, that's one thing. But man, this is where it chaps me being in this holistic field where, like, I'm reading studies where there's like this Swiss spa you go to, and it's all about parasites, and ivermectin is part of the protocol. And guess what? You shit out intestinal lining, and you think it's worms.
Yeah.
It's like, no. That is sausage casing right there. That is human sausage casing.
Oh, that's disgusting. Does that really happen?
Yeah. I mean, like I
How is that
I don't
supposed
want
to
to
help
out.
you?
I don't. Well, if you have parasites, it kills the parasite.
But it also seems to kill your small intestines.
The intestine itself, right? The whole GI tract, right? You have this mucous membrane, and then you have these epithelial cells that are supposed to slough off pretty easily because they're so vascular. Right. They recreate. But like you dump something in that, and it just kills that whole layer of cells, and they just pull away from the wall, and you shit them out.
And then you just regenerate.
Hopefully, if you didn't do too much damage.
Right.
I mean, the potential of actually destroying part of your lining permanently is there.
See, like,
which is why you normally do it like in a situation. Yeah. And this is another thing where like everyone's like, oh, it's got to be parasites, right? That's like the extreme end of the detox movement is like, oh, I'm going to do this anti-parasitic thing. And it's like, well, first of all, you're going to have shit living on you and in you that isn't you all the time. That's kind of how we're designed to work. Two, like what parasite? This is like the same thing with a detox. What toxic compound are you trying to get out, and what pathways are you using? If you can't show me, like prop up some little bug in a microscope and say this is in you, well then why are you doing something anti-parasitic?
Right.
You know. Anyway, man, we're all over the place. I think we should wrap this up.
We can do that. But yeah, like so we are all over the place, but like that's kind of like the point of this, right? Like, you know, you get these people that are like
that's typical for us too.
Right? Well, it's also not atypical of us.
Yeah.
What are you getting into these days?
So, man, I just found out about an hour before we got on this call. I was just appointed the Vice President of Public Affairs for the Maryland Acupuncture Society. Yeah,
congratulations.
I sent my CV in there and I said, you know what? I'd like to do more work for no money.
Be subversive, irreverent.
Health is wealth, but you knew that.
Everybody knows that.
But so is following us on social media at Irreverent Health. And check out our website for more exclusive content at irreverenthealth.com.
Oh, I like this.
Thanks for tuning into this episode of Irreverent Health.